How did you know when they changed the guard here? I demanded in a low voice, as soon as he was out of earshot. And do you really have a father? Well, do you? And if so, how did your poor mother ever survive giving birth to a living rock? I didn't, Mr. Linton. I knew from Warren's report when the guard changed at number 97 East India Dock Road, and, based on the hypothesis that all the Presidency Army soldiers were likely to operate on the same schedule, I set my watch to local time before we went into the mine. I had to admit, he had brains, even if they were frozen. But that answer wasn't enough. I itched to ask him just one more question. Was the watch really your father's? Why is there a crest on the lid? Does it really belong to a noble family? And if so, what the heck are you doing with it? You're no nobleman, right? All right, maybe that was more than just one question. To be honest, I had a mountain of questions about him, his somewhat scary plans for the domination of all the trade in the world, and his past, and his future. But none of these things were actually any of my business, and with us sneaking into the villain's lair, this was certainly not the right time and place for curiosity. So I swallowed my questions and followed him up the stairs, until we reached a large landing at the top, hewn out of the rock floor of the raised plateau. We had hardly set foot on the stone when, from up ahead, we heard voices. Among the echoing noises of the busy cave, they were too indistinct for me to recognize, but not for Mr. Ambrose. Get down. Grabbing my arm, he shoved me behind one of the wooden buildings that stood right beside the landing. Stumbling, I fell to my knees, and remained like that, cowering on the cold stone, while the voices drew nearer. Mr. Ambrose appeared beside me, his whole body tensed like a panther about to spring. We waited, in silence. I didn't dare move a single muscle. The men made any progress so far. A familiar, smooth, magnanimous voice came from the other side of the building. It sounded so charming, so relaxed. Even now, knowing what I knew, I could hardly believe this was Lord Dalgleish, chief shareholder of the Honourable East India Company and close friend to the Crown, discussing criminal enterprises. No, my lord, the code of the documents in question seems to be well developed. I see. Please be so kind as to see to it that they are properly motivated, will you? I wish them to understand how important this project is to me and to the company. Yes, my lord. I shall think of a suitable motivation. Excellent. I'm sure I can rely on you. Yes, my lord. Certainly, my lord. And what about the diplomatic treaties that were not encoded? The secret agreements with Muhammad Ali Pasha. Were they genuine? Oh yes, my lord. Every word. I see. Do we have an East Indiaman scheduled to go to Egypt? Yes, my lord. How fortunate. Please send one of my agents on board and instruct him to courteously discourage His Highness the Khedive from any such further action. Tell him it would be unwise. He would not want to lose my goodwill, now, would he? The words were so soft, so friendly, not angry at all. And yet, I caught a glimpse of the other man, who walked beside Lord Dalgleish as they passed by the building behind which we were hiding. At the words, lose my goodwill, he flinched as if hit by a whip. Certainly not, my lord, he said hurriedly. The Khedive will surely take that into consideration. Lord Dalgleish smiled. Yes, I'm sure he will. They began to descend the stairs, their voices fading into the distance. I continued to cower on the stone floor, my heart still hammering like an insane woodpecker. After a while, I tried to get up, but found I couldn't get my legs to move. Who is this Khedive person? I asked, my voice slightly unsteady. Mr. Ambrose had risen beside me. His legs didn't seem to have been filled with pudding. The ruler of Egypt, he responded curtly. Lord Dalgleish can tell the king of Egypt what to do. Mr. Ambrose lowered his eyes until he met mine. Lord Dalgleish can tell the queen of the British Empire what to do. Ali Pasha hardly presents a challenge to him. And neither, apparently, do I. His left little finger twitched, once. It cost me a fortune to negotiate these secret treaties. It will cost me another to renegotiate, now that Dalgleish knows. This is quite inconvenient. Inconvenient, dear me. Such strong words, sir. Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. Shut and get up. Yes, sir. Unsteadily, I got to my feet. What now? I wanted to know. Holding up a finger, Mr. Ambrose took 2 quick steps to the corner of the building and spied across the corner. There is only one other building up here, he said, his voice hardly audible. I leaned closer. 2 guards, one on either side of the door. How will we get past them? I will trick them the same way I tricked the officer on the stairs. And what if they don't fall for it? He didn't answer, and he didn't really need to. I already knew. Ready, Mr. Linton. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders and tried to appear as male and soldierly as I possibly could. Yes, sir. 3, 2, 1, now. We emerged from behind the building in what I hoped looked like lockstep, and not like a pair of gallivanting giraffes. The guards' eyes immediately focused on us, and their hands closed more tightly around their rifles. Oh, that was no good sign. Afternoon, fellows. Mr. Ambrose nodded to the men. He didn't stop in his move towards them, obviously expecting them to step aside. Ye can go and have a nice lie down, now. Me and my mate, we're taking over. The 2 men didn't move an inch. It ain't time for the changing of the guard yet, soldierly Exhibit A said. He was a broad-shouldered man with curly, blonde hair and long ears. I had never trusted people with long ears. Spaniels had long ears, and so had the Prime Minister. It ain't. Again, Mr. Ambrose took the watch out of his pocket and opened it. It is. Look. Soldierly Exhibitor took a brief look at Mr. Ambrose's watch, then slid his hand into his pocket and took out his own. Your watch is going wrong, he stated after a short examination. I swear, it ain't time yet. It's still more than half an hour. Mr. Ambrose sighed. My watch ain't never wrong. Yours must be. Look, if ye don't believe me, go ask Colonel Townsend. The soldier's long ears twitched at the name. Colonel Townsend. He knows you're here. He's the one that sent us up here, pal. You can have it out with him, if ye want, but you ain't gonna stop me and my mate from staying. This is our shift, and we're gonna do as we was told. The long-eared guard bit down on his lower lip. The name of the officer had apparently eradicated his suspicions and simultaneously sown doubts in his mind about the reliability of his watch. You could almost hear the words. After all, the modern trash today ain't very reliable. Things ain't what they used to be. All right, he growled. But if I find out you've been pulling one over on me, pal, I'll get back at you, don't ye doubt it. Mr. Ambrose gave a little snort of derision. Why do ye think I'd want to do that, eh? Do I look like I enjoy pushing my legs in my liver? I'd rather sit down and have a drink than stand around all day for no good reason. There's a reason, all right, the guard growled. Whatever's in that place, he pointed to the hut he had been guarding, is pretty important. Be off with you. Mr. Ambrose waved him away. Don't ye fear, we ain't gonna let anybody nick my lord's stuff. Ye'd better not. With that, the long-eared guard waved to his silent companion, and the two disappeared down the stairs. I opened my mouth to speak, but immediately Mr. Ambrose held up a warning hand. I shut my mouth again. With a jerk of his head, he indicated for me to follow him, and took up his position to the right of the door. I placed myself to the left and stood straight, arms hanging loosely down my sides, just as he did. In this position we remained. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. I was beginning to wonder what we were waiting for, when I heard it, or rather its absence, footsteps. They were gone. We had been waiting until the guards were out of hearing distance. As soon as there was silence, Mr. Ambrose sprang into action. Fishing 2 small pieces of metal out of his pockets, he bent down in front of the door of the wooden hut and began fumbling at the keyhole. Where in God's name do you have the keys for this place from? I hissed. I don't, was his calm reply. These are no keys. They're lockpicks. Lockpicks. What does a respectable gentleman want with lockpicks? Nothing, probably. He threw me a cool glance. His fingers didn't stop. They moved in an intricate dance, producing clicking noises from the lock. But then, I never claimed to be respectable. He turned his eyes towards the lock again. Listen closely now, Mr. Linton. We have exactly 26 minutes and 31 seconds until the next shift of guards arrives. Less even, if those 2 who just left should happen to meet Colonel Townsend and discuss with him our appearance here. I will need approximately another 3 minutes to open this lock, and there might be other, more complicated locks between us and the file inside the hut, so we will have to move fast. As soon as the file is in our possession, we will move to the tunnel at the end of the cave. What tunnel, sir? Didn't you see the tunnel at the other side of the cave as we came in? No, sir. Well, I did. As I passed it, I felt a breeze come up the tunnel. It smelled of sea air. There's a direct connection to the coast through that tunnel. Judging from the general direction of the passage, it should come out somewhere near the harbor you told me about. If we go by that route, we might be able to make our escape before the soldiers realize they've been hoodwinked. And we might end up at a dead end and be trapped. We might, but better a risk in life than certain death, Mr. Linton. I couldn't argue with that. What should I do? I asked him. Can I help? Yes. How? Be quiet. I bit back a sharp reply. This time, his terseness might actually be more than simply annoyance at my presence and general feminine existence. I had no idea if one needed quiet to pick a lock. It might very well be. And you can keep an eye on the stairs, he added in a voice that wasn't quite as granite hard as usual, rather more akin to slate, or sandstone. Tell me immediately when somebody approaches, understood? For some reason, a smile appeared on my face. Yes, sir. I had been staring at the empty stairs for a few minutes when from behind me, I heard a click. Done. Let's go, Mr. Linton. When I turned my head, I saw that the door was indeed standing open a crack. What now? I whispered. Should I stand guard outside while you go in and get the file? No, he said. I don't want you to stay out here alone. He gave no more explanation, but silently beckoned me to follow him inside. I did so, feeling confused. What was that supposed to mean? That had sounded almost as if he wanted to keep me at his side because he cared more about my safety than about securing his precious secret file, the key to all his greatest dreams of wealth and power. But that couldn't be the case, surely. Compared to the distant, echoing hum of voices and clatter of cargo out in the cave, it was almost eerily quiet inside the hut. It was only a small, honor-room building, made of wood, but still I felt as though I had entered a church, or a throne room, or another place of majesty. And at the other end of the little room, only a few yards away from Mr. Ambrose and me, stood the throne, the holy grail of this palace, a small, black safe, with a lock on its door that looked considerably more complicated than the one on the door outside. Mr. Ambrose took 2 quick steps towards the safe and bent forward to examine the lock. His eyes narrowed the fraction of an inch. Mr. Linton. Yes. We might have a slight problem. Indeed, sir. Yes, I calculate I will need about 20 minutes to open this lock. And how many minutes do we still have left until the guards appear, sir? 20. Oh, that might be a problem, sir. Yes, indeed. Without another word, he shoved his lockpicks into the lock and started fiddling. The sound of metal clinking and scraping was nerve-wracking, and after only a short time, I was hardly able to stay still. I started to walk up and down the hut, trying not to think of what would happen if the real guards walked in on us now. They probably wouldn't look kindly on 2 of their supposed colleagues trying to crack Lord Dalglish's safe. Mr. Linton, came a terse voice from floor level, in the direction of the safe. Yes, sir. Stop walking about, you are distracting me. I forced myself to stop, and instead leaned against the wall and started to nervously flex my fingers. I wouldn't have thought anything could distract Mr. Ambrose. But then, the prospect of being shot would probably even faze a stone statue such as he. Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. Stop flexing your fingers. I can hear your knuckles cracking from over here. Yes, sir. Of course, sir. I clenched my hands into fists and folded my arms in front of my chest, just in case. I even tried to breathe more evenly so as not to disturb him. Please let him be quick, I prayed. Please. Click. Done, he exclaimed. Was that a tiny hint of excitement I heard in his voice? Whatever it was gone immediately. He gripped the handle of the safe, and I launched myself forward, eagerly gazing over his shoulder. After weeks of searching, weeks of wondering what the bloody hell we were after, I was finally going to see the mysterious file. What would it look like? I imagined a black steel case, with the letters, Top Secret, printed in dark red on the top, and a padlock on the side. Or maybe. The door of the safe swung open. Inside lay a thin, beige envelope, about the size of a standard letter. Yes, Mr. Ambrose reached inside, grasped the envelope and flipped it open. Quickly, he skimmed through the contents. I saw dozens of sheets, covered with column upon column of numbers, and a few pieces of paper covered in a squiggly, foreign script I could not decipher. That's it, I demanded. Yes, everything is here. He didn't notice the dire disappointment in my voice. Or if he did, he chose to completely ignore it. His dark eyes were glittering with an inner frost, as if he had just been given an award by the International Miser Society. With silent reverence, he held up the envelope for a moment, as if it indeed were the Holy Grail to him. Maybe it was. Then he slipped it into his pocket, and from his other one withdrew a similar-looking envelope, which he placed inside the safe before closing and locking it. What was that about? Why not just take the envelope? Why leave one behind? Was it an apology letter? Sir, I am deeply regretful to have had to disturb your criminal operation, but it was necessary to retrieve an item which you stole from me. My sincerest apologies, Rickard Ambrose. I glanced at Mr. Ambrose's chiseled face and shook my head. No, he wouldn't write anything remotely like an apology, or write or say anything at all for that matter. He would just stay silent, in the knowledge that he had given his opponent a solid figurative kick in the bollocks. So what was the envelope for? I burned to ask, but this was neither the time nor place. We have to get out of here. Mr. Ambrose cut short the very same words in my mind. He sprang to his feet and strode over to the door. Carefully, he peeked outside. The guards are still nowhere in sight. If we hurry, we can reach the tunnel before they arrive and the alarm is raised. He was already about to open the door when, suddenly, an idea struck me and I grabbed his arm. But why leave at all? I demanded. Turning, he threw me a look that could have frozen lava. Would you prefer to stay and ask for hospitality? I imagine Lord Dalgleish would be delighted to receive you for tea and biscuits. Especially when you will have such interesting topics of conversation as where the most precious document on this entire island has disappeared to. I said, trying to be patient, why should we run now, before the guards arrive? We could shut the door of the hut and stand outside like real guards until the next shift arrives. They will think we are the real guards, the ones they're supposed to be relieving, and we'll saunter off without anybody ever being the wiser. It may have been only a trick of the torchlight, but I thought I saw Mr. Ambrose's mouth drop open slightly. He was quiet for 1 or 2 moments. Then he said, "This actually sounds as if it were a reasonably feasible plan. Blimey, don't be all over with me with your compliments. Don't worry, I won't. So we're going to do it." He hesitated. I could see the struggle in his eyes, the same struggle as on the day I had asked for a dress and a bag of onions. He hated to adopt any plan of mine, probably because it meant admitting I actually was of some use. But he was nothing if not practical, and I could see the thought enter his mind as clearly as if it were painted on his forehead. At least this plan wouldn't be expensive. All right, he conceded. We will, and he stepped outside to take up his position beside the door. To my own great surprise, my plan actually worked perfectly. The 2 guards showed up only 2 minutes after we had left the hut, greeted us in a quite friendly manner and sent us off downstairs. I followed Mr. Ambrose down at a steady pace, although what I actually wanted to do was run. Stay calm, I told myself. There is no need to run. Nobody knows the file is missing. You can walk out of here slowly and nobody will ever know. Everything is going great. Yes, everything was going great, until, as we passed under a shadowy arch of stone, I saw, a few dozen yards away, the 2 guards we had relieved of the duty half an hour ago. They were engaged in an energetic discussion with Colonel Townsend. Send them up there, the colonel was saying. No, why in God's name should I do something like that? I thought they were the regular shift that Mr. Ambrose had seen them, too. He stiffened. Seems like not attracting attention is no longer an option, he stated icily. Move, now. Grasping my hand, he tugged me away from the colonel, towards the entrance of the tunnel he had pointed out earlier. He didn't have to tug hard. I hurried after him, trying my best to keep up with his long strides. He was right, we had to get out of here right now, or we were as good as dead. Quickly, we neared the entrance to the tunnel. There was a soldier standing beside it. A guard. Do you think he'll try and stop us from entering the tunnel? I asked out of the corner of my mouth, nodding towards the soldier. It is interesting how you always seem to assume that I know everything about this place, when, in fact, I haven't been aware of its existence any longer than you have, Mr. Linton. I have no idea. Well, what if he does? No answer. Sir. Silence. So I just continued on, trying to ignore the rising feeling of panic in my stomach. The guard definitely looked alert and suspicious enough to justify my fears. He had a narrow rat's face, with a long, twitching nose. I had never trusted people with long noses. Sir, my voice was a harsh whisper. Mr. Ambrose, sir, what will we do if he doesn't let us pass? Sir. More silence. I looked up at his face and saw that, although it was cool and serene as ever, his eyes were totally focused on the guard, burning with cold ice. Maybe, just maybe, he didn't know what to do yet, either. We were only 10 yards or so away from the tunnel entrance now. I tried to look as innocent as possible. If you think about it, we are innocent, right? After all, we're just stealing back something that had been previously purloined. 100% correct. My ears, though, didn't seem to agree. They were red hot with guilt. Never before had I been so thankful for my tan skin, which would at least hide the blush on my cheeks. 5 yards. 4. The guard didn't move. 3 yards. Without warning, the guard stepped sideways, blocking our way. My hands clenched into fists, and it took a conscious effort to relax them, and to look the man straight into his little rat's eyes. Hey, you there, you know nobody is allowed in the tunnel without permission from the colonel. But we, Avenue permission, Mr. Ambrose said, his voice absolutely credible, almost affronted at being questioned like this. We're to stand guard at the other end. New safety measures. Oh, let's see your permission slip, then. Certainly. Reaching into his pocket, Mr. Ambrose withdrew a slip of paper. What was this? Had he somehow managed to magically forge Colonel Townsend's signature? I was beginning to think that nothing about him would ever surprise me again. I was wrong. Here, he held out the paper to the guard, who leant his rifle against the wall and took it. Hey, wait just a minute. This isn't. Mr. Ambrose's fist moved so fast I didn't even see it coming. Neither did the guard. He flew backward and crashed against the stone wall beside the tunnel, sliding to the ground, unconscious. Run, Mr. Ambrose said. He didn't yell. He didn't shout. He just said it. Why, you knocked him unconscious. Yes, Mr. Linton. Now move. And then he was running, pulling me after him. I stumbled, still staring at the prone figure at the floor. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of the shocked faces of hundreds of soldiers all over the cave, staring down at us, and then I was inside the tunnel, being dragged along the rails towards the foremost of the mining carts. Get in, he commanded. I looked from him to the cart and back again. Into that. But why? Get in, I said. His tone was so deadly cold that my legs moved without consulting my mind on the matter. With a painful thud, I landed on my knees inside the iron cart. I had hardly had time to grab the wall to steady myself. When I felt it, the cart started to move. Bloody hell, what? I raised my head and stared at Mr. Ambrose, who was grinding his teeth, both of his hands clasped around the back wall of the cart, pushing it forward. My head snapped around to look in the other direction, where the rails led down a steep decline, then it whirled back to face Mr. Ambrose. Suddenly, I realized what he was planning to do. Are you crazy? I yelled over the creak of the metal wheels. Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Linton. How he managed to sound cool and distant while his muscles bunched with the effort of pushing the cart forward was a mystery to me, but not one I cared to solve right now. I had more pressing matters on my mind, such as, are there even any brakes on this thing? Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Linton. Well, are you aware of what'll happen if we run into a dead end? Have you ever tried making meat and bone pancakes, Mr. Linton? Stop this at once. I started to rise. I'm getting out of this thing right now. I won't. There was an ear-splitting boom that echoed all around the cave. Something ripped my ridiculous blue hat from my head, and it smashed against the wall. I had just enough time to see the large hole in the middle before it rolled out of my field of vision. My incredulous eyes flicked from the place where my mutilated hat had lain, to the entrance of the tunnel where, in a patch of torchlight, I saw a soldier standing, his rifle raised. Others were appearing around him, shouting and yelling curses. Not bothering to consult my mind again, my legs dropped me to the floor. All right, maybe I'll stay in here after all. How gracious of you, Mr. Linton. The cart was gathering speed now. We were almost at the slope that would carry us away. Mr. Ambrose shoved harder and harder, scarcely breathing heavily at the effort. I would never have thought that there was this much raw power in that cold, hard body of his. He looked focused and determined, as if he had been pushing mine carts all his life. Hold on, Mr. Linton, he hissed. He gave a last shove, and then jumped into the cart behind me. The force of his jump carried us forward another few feet, just far enough to reach the edge of the slope. We started to gather more and more speed. Wind rushed against my hair and tugged at my brown locks, making them fly all around me. Behind us, I could hear more shouts, and then there came another shot. The car reverberated with a sound like a bell, and a scream tore from my throat. They had hit the car. Keep your head down, Mr. Ambrose hissed. Thank you for the valuable advice, sir, I growled. I'd never have thought of that. Another shot, and another. Stone dust rained down on us as it hit the ceiling above. The light around us dwindled fast as we gathered speed. The torches of the cave were only a distant glimmer by now, while the dark before us was a gaping maw waiting for a scrumptious meal of ambrosia and lily. Somewhere out of the half-light behind us, I could hear the creak of more metal wheels, and knew what it meant. They're following us. Then, all thoughts disappeared as we shot around a corner and down, away from all light, down into the darkness. The tortoise and the other tortoise and no hare. Our race into the darkness ended rather abruptly when, after a few dozen yards, the rails leveled out, and our cart rolled to a halt. Having expected a thrilling race through the dark tunnels of the mine, this was something of an anticlimax. It was also quite worrying, considering a bunch of bloodthirsty soldiers, armed with rifles, sabers and God only knew what else, were not far behind. Now what are we going to do? I demanded. Get out and push. Not quite, he said dryly, and in so calm a voice it made me want to strangle him. Climb over there, quick. Jumping over the front wall of the cart, he landed on something solid, wood, not the stone of the tunnel floor, I could tell from the sound his shoes made. He gestured for me to follow. Looking over the edge of the cart's metal wall, I saw that it didn't actually end at what I had taken to be the front wall. There was a flat, wooden extension, a kind of platform, attached to the front, and in the middle of the platform there was a construction that looked like a strange sort of metal seesaw. The only difference from a seesaw was, it didn't have seats at the ends. Instead, it had wooden handles, one of which Mr. Ambrose was already holding. Well, what are you waiting for? He asked. Grab hold, and let's get going. Get going with what? I demanded, though I already had an inkling. Grab the other handle and start moving it up and down, he ordered. This isn't just a mining cart. It's a draisine. A what? A draisine. You move it by moving the handles up and down. You mean you want to try and escape the murderous hordes that are chasing us by pumping up and down? Essentially, yes. You must be joking. He considered this. No, he stated. In fact, I'm quite at liberty to be serious. Which I am in general, and in particular at the moment. You don't say. Yes, I do. Now get moving, Mr. Linton. I opened my mouth to argue, then, I heard the screech of another mining cart, not far behind us. However much I might have liked to argue, there was no time. Quickly, I grabbed the other end of the seesaw and, immediately, Mr. Ambrose began to move up and down at a prodigious rate. The cart, or draisine, rather, shuddered, and then began to move forward at a leisurely pace. I felt as if we were sitting in an old lady's carriage, with a tame old horse in front, so the venerable grandmother wouldn't get jostled. Can't this thing go any faster? I panted. Of course it can, was Mr. Ambrose's reply. If you move faster, and he picked up the pace. It was all I could do to try and follow his movements and not dangle off at the end like a sack of potatoes. I doubt I contributed much to our forward thrust. Nevertheless, sweat soon began running down my forehead. Don't shove the lever upwards like that, Mr. Ambrose commanded. It comes up automatically on your side when I push down. We have to move in turns. First you push down, then I, then you again. From then on, we alternated in the movement, and I had to bear half of the burden. As we moved along at an agonizing pace, we could hear the soldiers slowly coming closer behind us. They didn't seem to have nearly as much trouble as we with getting the draisine moving. Well, they probably don't eat as much solid chocolate as you do, said a nasty little voice in my head. And, oh yes, all that soldiering they do, that running around and marching with heavy packs on their shoulders all day long, that probably doesn't hurt either. Gritting my teeth, I swore to myself to take more regular walks in the park. Maybe if I had done that, maybe if my behind wasn't so generous, I wouldn't feel as if my lungs were bursting now. You're not up for this, Mr. Ambrose stated in a calm tone, not interrupting his rapid movement for a second. You are already exhausted. I'm fine. You do too little exercise, Mr. Linton. Your figure. There's nothing whatsoever wrong with my figure. I snapped. I said I'm fine. I do plenty of exercise. Such as, walks in the park. How long? How fast? I felt my ears heat. About 10 minutes long, slowly back and forth between the bench and the duck pond. But he didn't need to know that. Do you want me to talk or to move, sir? He narrowed his eyes a little more, but didn't say anything else. He just kept moving, and so did I, hoping fervently that the red color of my face came from my exertion, and not from his remarks about my personal appearance. What in heaven's name had he been going to say about my figure? Probably that you're fat, the tiny voice in my mind whispered. I told it to shut up and help me move. Somehow, I would manage. I would get through this alive, and then I would start exercising until I was strong enough to handle a draisine, and to strangle Mr. Rickard Ambrose. I had just reached that resolution when we came to the foot of the hill. It started slowly, so slowly I hardly noticed at first. The cart tilted slightly, and my arms, which had already been screaming before, were now howling in agony. At first I thought it was just the exhaustion, but the rise became steeper and steeper, until I finally realized we were going up a hill. Bloody hell, this has to be the slowest chase in the history of the world. Shut up and push, Mr. Linton. On the plus side, the hill turned out to only a small one. On the minus side, after it came another, and another, and another. God, wasn't this ever going to stop? My fingers were raw from the rough wood of the handle, and all thoughts of what Mr. Ambrose thought of my figure had left me. I couldn't think of anything, anymore. There was just the next push, the next turn of the wheel. Finally, I collapsed onto the wooden platform. My arms felt like burning splints of tinder, my clothes were drenched in sweat, and my last piece of strength was gone. I couldn't move an inch. Get up, Mr. Ambrose's voice commanded from somewhere above me. You can't keep the cart moving if you're lying on the floor, Mr. Linton. Geez, you don't say. Yes, I do say. Get up. I can't. The voice that came out of my throat didn't sound like my own. It was the croak of some half-starved crow. I can't. I'm sorry. Unsurprisingly, he wasn't very moved by my apology. I order you to get up, Mr. Linton. Oh, go stick it where the sun doesn't shine. There was a pause. Then. I knew it. The ice in his voice sent a chill down my back. I knew this would happen sooner or later. You're nothing but a weak, feminine girl. A man in your place wouldn't. He broke off, but he didn't need to finish the sentence. I could imagine its ending all too well. Suddenly, energy surged through me. Not strength, no, but something even better. Anger. A man would what? I snapped, raising my eyes from the floor to glare at him. He just shook his head. Forget it, Mr. Linton. It doesn't matter anymore. Letting go of the seesaw, he stepped back, his expression stoic. He wasn't even looking at me. He was gazing off into the distance, his mouth set in a resigned line. He was giving up because I was a girl. It bloody well does. With a gut-wrenching effort, I scrambled to my feet and grabbed hold of the wooden handle. Where's your stomach? Get hold of that handle and start moving. We're not beaten yet, not by a long shot. He observed me for a moment through slightly narrowed eyes, as I stood there, legs shaking, hands clasped around the handle. But you're too weak to do this. You said so yourself. I never said anything of the sort. Let's get going. Something twitched at the corner of his mouth. I blinked. Had I seen right? Could that have been the shadow of a smile? But no, why would he smile? What was there to smile about, here and now? All right, if you're sure you can handle it. I had to be mistaken. Rickard Ambrose never smiled. Yes, I'm bloody sure. What are you waiting for? Another moment of silence passed. Then he gave a curt nod and abruptly took hold of the other end of the seesaw once more. Well, if you insist, Mr. Linton. He shoved down so hard it nearly lifted me off my feet. I gathered all my strength and pushed, and let loose, and pushed, and let loose. From then on, I kept up, although the pace he set nearly killed me. I wouldn't give up again for anything, not after what he had said. Ha, weak, feminine girl indeed. We were already halfway up the hill when it occurred to me that he might have said that on purpose, just to get me off the floor and moving again. But no, he didn't know me that well, did he? Yes, he does, that little annoying voice whispered in my ear. I told it to shut up and help my aching arms. I pushed and pushed, but although I gave it my best effort, we still were only moving as fast as an old lady's carriage drawn by a horse with 2 lame legs. I estimated our stunning speed at about 1 mile per hour. Fortunately, the soldiers behind us seemed to have troubles, too. To judge by the voices I heard echoing behind me in the tunnel, there appeared to be more than 2 of them on the draisine, and the added weight was making it difficult for them to get up the latest hillside. But that didn't make my burning arms feel any better. Mr. Ambrose, I gasped. Yes, Mr. Linton. Next time you pick a cart to flee on, sir, pick one that is steam engine driven. Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. Be quiet and move faster. Yes, sir. From behind us came the boom of a shot. I nearly dropped the handle and threw myself to the floor.